Have you seen what's happening in South Africa with all these attacks on these xenophobic attacks?
Yeah, it's I think literally you can't miss it at the moment. It's everywhere. It's such a surprise to see such things happening in a country where I think the opposite should be happening, where there should be solidarity with Africans from other countries, given the history of South Africa.
Yeah, it's so, for me, it's really sad to see, like, how do you single out people and say, Nigerians and Zimbabweans and Congolese and Ghanaians and foreigners, they're the drug dealers and all of that, as if there was never drugs in a
Mm,
place, and just the inhumane, the lack of humanity, um, and the lack of response too from both like the government, but also the people, because South Africa has almost 60 million people. But
yeah,
of the 60 million people, very few are saying anything. Of course, some of them are children and they can't speak, but I mean, they should be speaking up for these people who are getting killed and these people who are getting hurt, and pushing their governments to do something about it.
yeah.
Since the government seems to be just so, I mean, useless in the situation.
Yeah. I saw a poignant moment on a video I watched earlier on Facebook, and I think there was this Somalian man. He was speaking to a community of Somalians, and I think other people from other communities as well. And he started recanting literally the history of South Africa, saying about how Nelson Mandela was taught to shoot a gun by an Ethiopian. He was speaking about how Morocco funded South Africa. He spoke about how Mozambique, Tanzania, and other countries helped South Africa to gain, let's say, independence, and for there to be for appetite to be gotten rid of. And he was saying that we are Africans and this is Africa. So he was saying that we are home and this is our home, and we don't understand how people can kick other Africans out of Africa, out of our motherland, especially given the history. But as you say, I think there's a lot to be said about the response from the authorities. Um, a lot of people are claiming that police and the government are actually almost being inactive on purpose. I'm not sure how true that is. But from what the way it looks to me is that definitely there is either um, purposeful negligence, or whether the negligence is because of lack of capacity. I don't understand what's going on there.
I mean, I saw videos a couple of days ago that were, where the police was like fighting the rioters and stuff like that. But I also saw a video today. I don't know if it's recent or it's from a long time ago, but there was this, I think is an assistant minister or something of police who was, he was making the speech was inflammatory against the foreign nationals, saying that certain cities are occupied by 80% foreign nationals. And, with time, the foreign nationals are going to end up taking over South Africa. I don't know if that is real, if that's true, but I saw that. But I mean, that's kind of the sentiment by the people who are doing all this, all the killings,
Yeah,
and just the ones who, it's terrible that these the gangs, the mobs are out there killing people.
yeah,
And for me, what's worse is always the people who just see it and they see the injustice and they say nothing and they do nothing about it. And they kind of just, to me, that's just consent. You're just letting, when you let it happen, you're basically saying, okay, I support whoever's doing whatever they're doing right now.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Claude, how does it, from the perspective of a Rwandan refugee? I mean, we're refugees from Rwanda. How does it make you feel when you see these images? And I know what emotions I go through. I know exactly what I feel as a refugee. I'm guessing we may have a different perspective from maybe other Africans watching this from their countries where maybe they've never experienced um, having to migrate. I know a lot of the people in South Africa, some of them are refugees, some of them are economic migrants, some of them are, um, it's interesting
Yeah,
in
I
Europe
mean,
and in other places when a European moves to another place, they're an expat. But when an
right.
African moves to Europe, we are immigrants. So I don't know whether Nigerians or Ghanaians in South Africa, whether they're expats or immigrants, but definitely some of them are refugees.
Yeah, you got Congolese, you got
What emotions go
Somalians.
through your head? Yeah.
Yeah, see, for me, when I see attacks on people who migrate, especially attacks on refugees, it reminds me of this is when you think of people internal to a country attacking refugees. That actually happened last year in Rwanda, in the Kiziba refugee camp, where the Rwandan military attacked the refugees and injured refugees, killed dozens of refugees, and obviously no one has been held accountable for that. So to me, it's similar, but at the time when it happened in Rwanda, it was actually the official military and police. And if you don't believe me, let me just quickly show you some pictures. This is from the Kiziba refugee camps. And I may have some footage also. Just give me 1 second. Peter, do you remember seeing these pictures?
Yeah. This is last year?
Yeah.
Is it 2017?
It might have been 2017. Maybe it was 2 years ago. It might have been 2 years, but this was in Rwanda in a refugee camp. So I can correct the year for sure.
So the people with their hands up, these are Congolese refugees.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. And look, the women crying here. Look at the soldiers surrounding. And they have their hands up, by the way, as you can see, they're peaceful. And look here, you got women and children, all crying with their hands up, and the soldiers and policemen. And these refugees were just, they wanted to go home. That's the other part, that went into this whole thing. And here's more of those pictures. Now here's footage of those refugees. Yes, it was from 2017, but here they are. This is somebody that's injured, a bunch of them bleeding, just like the pictures we're seeing in South Africa.
Yeah.
And then check this one out. Look at this. This is some more injured people. Looks like it's loading. This is someone that's injured, and it was just frantic, and this is inside of Rwanda. Now, the other part that we should not forget is these people became refugees when Rwanda went after their own refugees. The military of Rwanda went after their own refugees in refugee camps inside of the Congo. They killed hundreds of thousands of those people, and like selected women and blind people and all of that, and killed millions of Congolese people. And of course, as you know, I mean, when a bomb hits or somebody starts shooting, you just run to whatever direction you are away from the shootings. So these people ended up in Rwanda, and here they are, and they were butchered. They're killed inside of Rwanda. So those are the kind of memories that I get when I see refugees being attacked, and this type of killings that are targeting people outside of their own countries.
Yeah, I mean, the government of Rwanda has form in this kind of thing, and what is sad is that it's not as reported as it should be. Obviously, what's happening in South Africa now is gaining a lot of attention for what's happening, and a lot of it is happening on the streets. The difference is, I believe, with Rwanda, because it's professional soldiers doing the killing and doing the terrorism, a lot of times it's done in controlled environments, and so there's not a lot of footage. I'm even surprised that the footage that you shown was actually shot and was able to be shown. But I also I think it's worth noting, since we are talking about what's happening in South Africa, that the government of Rwanda actually has been to South Africa, assassinating Rwandan refugees there as well. I think it's about 3 or 4 people have been killed and a few others injured in South Africa by the Rwandese government. And I think that whether it's xenophobia by certain people in South Africa, I believe it's probably a minority, very few people. Whether it's state-sponsored, violence, for me, it's all the same. It's violence against Africans. It's violence against people who are either seeking refuge or seeking a better economic life in a peaceful country, or what's supposed to be a peaceful country. And I think that it's not only sad, but it's something that if, like you said, people can watch this and do nothing, I think they're complicit. I've always felt that.
So what should we do as Africans about what's happening in South Africa? Or what should the rest of Africa,
Yeah.
other Africans, what should we do in response?
Well, for me, I think that when you see violence or anything against humanity, we speak about crimes against humanity. Obviously, those are the big crimes. But I think anything that harms somebody, especially when they're innocent, I think that is a crime against humanity. I think it's everyone's responsibility, especially as Africans. First of all, if you see it and you know that something like that is happening, for you to say something or to speak out. And thankfully, in 2019, we have so many avenues to do this. You can see on your desk, on your computer, on your phone, and you can tweet, you can go and make a lot of noise or join campaigns online, and that is adding your voice to something. If you're inclined to go on the street, I think you can do that. But I think the sad thing is that so many people sometimes sit back and watch and do nothing, maybe because they're expecting that somebody else is going to do something. But then if the other person thinks the same thing as well, then it becomes almost like it's something which is it almost becomes like it's we are allowing this to happen, or that it's actually something that we are, what's the word I'm looking for, almost rubber stamping. And
Yeah,
so
I mean, to me, that's it. If you see the injustice and you keep quiet, you don't even say anything, you are complicit. You are helping whoever is committing the atrocities. And I think every African has a responsibility to speak up, to denounce what's happening in South Africa, to take whatever action you can take with whatever tools that you have at your hands, whether it's just making sure that this is like the world knows what injustice is happening in South Africa, via your own little social media circle, via your own little circle. If you have no social media, just let the people know, write letters, make sure it's broadcast, make sure the world knows that this is happening. That's step one, raise awareness. Step two is, I think, wherever we are, we should start looking to anything that the South African government is involved in, or anybody representing South Africa. We need to start boycotting those things, just like, I mean, these were maybe before our days, but during apartheid, a lot of people boycotted South Africa because of apartheid, and because of these atrocities that are happening. And this should not be limited to South Africa. Any African governments, anyone that's harming Africans to this, it doesn't have to be to this extent. We need to boycott them. And so, how about anything? For example, if there are countries, I mean, say international competitions, national competitions, just whatever African teams are supposed to play them, just say, you know what, we're not playing, or the players just walk off the field in protest of what's happening in South Africa. If there is some kind of trade union, trade meetings or conventions and things like that South Africa is supposed to be taking part in, don't take part in it. Protest it. Just say, you know what, I'm not going because of what's happening to the people in South Africa, and the government of South Africa has not taken action. And obviously, the people of South Africa also have not raised their voices enough to call out their own government. I think we've got to start doing something, and it's a responsibility of every African.
I mean, I'm always minded that when popular action works, and I think whenever I speak to my friends, I always say that a lot of people ask me why they always see me advocating about certain things, and they say, what difference do you think you're making? You remember in 2012, I mean, that's some people have said that to me, and it's quite demoralizing, but
you know what?
Literally, I will go out on the street by myself anyway to protest something, because that's my principles. But you remember in 2012 when the whole Joseph Kony thing was kicking off?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, history will judge that whether it was successful or not. But if we judge it for the fact of bringing the issue into the mainstream, it did that. You speak about other issues. I mean, you and I and a few other guys who've worked on a couple of campaigns. There is the campaign, remember last year, that we did where Rwanda and Uganda wanted to take a lot of African refugees from Israel to
Mm-hmm.
Rwanda and Uganda. And
And it was
funnily
a
enough,
money move. It was a money
yeah,
move. They were trying to
yeah,
make money off of them.
yeah. And it's just young, fit men that they wanted to take, which also that, it raised a lot of alarms. We campaigned against it, I think alongside other people who did. And I think we probably played a little part to that deal falling apart.
Hey,
Um,
action works.
yeah,
We don't need to worry about what exact difference that we're gonna make. To me, it's kind of like when you sleep in a house, your roof and your ceiling, they held up by nails and screws.
yeah.
Do you think the person that made the screw knows which screw is holding up your ceiling? But it's holding up your ceiling anyway. So
Yeah,
we just gotta do our part. We
yeah,
gotta do what we can,
yeah.
and
Make
and
the make the screw.
yeah, make the screw, and
Manufacture the
somebody's gonna make
nail.
the wood. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
And somebody's going to end up being under shelter. No, definitely. And I think that, and I think one thing that I think is always the problem in Africa, from the African context, is in almost every African country, there are so many problems. And so I think that we are, Africans have this, maybe we may be tempted to think, okay, fair enough, I can see what's happening in South Africa. I see what's happening in Rwanda. I saw what was happening in the Congo. We've got our own problems in this country. I would say that the majority of African governments probably are on the ruthless side, or not exactly the best examples of governance. And a lot of people already have issues they're dealing with, whether it's poverty, food security, maybe even physical security. But I think that if we lend voices to each other, and when it's our turn, I don't know. I don't know if you've been to Kenya or if you lived in Kenya. Do you know the concept of
yes,
Harambe?
yes. I
So you know
lived
the
in
concept
Kenya.
of Harambe.
Yeah.
And Harambe is when there's a need somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
everyone comes and puts a little bit in. It may be
Yeah.
just 10 shillings, 100 shillings, and you solve that issue. You build the school, you fix the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And then when in your village there's an issue, all those guys from the other villages, they come with their 10 bob. And then you have a couple of million to fix your bridge. But if everyone says, oh no, let's just fix our bridge, and it's only like 100 of you, you can't afford to do that. But you get everyone. And I think that, especially with what technology is giving us now, lend your voice, and it may get you outside of your comfort zone. Some people just don't like speaking out, but I think that we have to do this because we also depend on other Africans caring for our situation when we need them.
It's not a matter of liking to speak out or not.
Mm.
You know, it's a matter of, we allow it to happen to people right now today. It's
Mm.
going to become normal, and
Yeah,
it's going to happen to either us or somebody close to us. It's just a matter of time.
yeah,
And when that time comes, if you're not doing anything to stop it from getting there, first of all, there's going to be nobody to help. And if you do your part to try the best that you can to disrupt, whatever is going on, then you know what? At the end of the day, it'll probably stop before it gets to a lot more people. It's terrible. It's horrible that what is happening right now. But it's just there's gotta be some. We have to speak up. We have to, take action and obviously support. The people who have lost their belongings. Many people have lost their lives, and rest in peace. I mean, it's so sad to see. But we just cannot. We can't sit in our own comfort and say nothing and do nothing.
yeah,
And like I said, any kind of South African involvement in any kind of international African thing, we've got to, Africans as just human beings. And I'm talking about, there is actually right now some international competitions that's happening, or maybe friendly games. Hey, players, walk away, support your people. Just
Mm.
because you're a player and you play for a country, you're a human being first. And by the way, this thing about borders and no borders and everything, before we are whatever nationalities we are human first. We are people first.
Yeah. Unless, of course, the government starts um, to show a lot more willingness to deal with this issue, and I believe that they can if they want to. I mean, I don't know. I'm not on the ground. I don't really know the situation, what's happening there. I don't know what seems to be the problem for the authorities to be as slow to react to these things as they have been.
Yeah,
Um,
this thing's been going on for, I mean, it's been cycles, but
yeah.
just this round has been going on for, I don't know, what seems like eternity.
Mm.
And I'm sure the people who are going through it feel like, this is eternity. Even 1 second feels like in a lifetime.
Yeah.
And I see, people getting burnt up, people getting beat down, shot, all of these things. Whatever's happening to the people, I mean, there has got to be action. And you know what? At this point, you know what I was gonna say, the African Union, but I'm gonna stop there.
Yeah. Good luck.
I'm gonna stop at that
Good
because
luck with that one. Yeah.
I'm not sure that that's even an institution that's worth. I haven't seen anything from them. Maybe they've done something, but that institution is it's showing just how useless it is,
Mm.
and it's
I mean,
shown it in many countries.
whatever any institution is doing, maybe things are being done quietly on the ground, but I think that there is a responsibility for them to speak out, because the audience is not just in South Africa or in Africa. I think the whole world is watching, and I think that it's already there's rhetoric against Africa and Africans already. We know this. Not that we should pander to that kind of audience, but I think that communication is important, that we show that this is not Africa. And this is not Africa. This is not the majority of Africa. This is not how Africans think. It's a minority. It's a group of people who, for whatever reason, uh, are acting in this way. We've seen this. We saw in the genocide in our country. We've seen it in other places. We've seen it in Cameroon with the issue they have with the separatists there. We've seen it in Nigeria with the Biafran. So it's not unique to South Africa, but it's not. This is not Africans either. I
Yeah,
almost feel like I have to speak for Africa. Me, I have
but
a
guess
big.
what?
Yeah.
Now, when it was happening in those places,
Mm.
there's obviously Liberia, there's Sierra Leone, there's Somalia, there's Ethiopia, there's Eritrea. I mean, we can go down the list, right?
Mm.
Burundi, Uganda, all of these countries. The thing is, no matter what it is, right now, we cannot nobody can no longer hide, especially young people, can no
Mm.
longer hide behind the shield of not knowing,
Yeah.
because social media has made it visible. We
Yeah.
see it. When you see it, you have a responsibility to act.